just a moment.
We're waving it.
The Senate will please come to order. It's my pleasure to welcome for this morning's devotional exercise, Reverend Arnold Thomas of the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church of Jericho. Reverend, welcome. Welcome to the chamber virtually this morning.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
You may begin.
Okay, thank you. There's an old saying that misery loves company. Am I echoing?
Reverend, we can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just.
We're just going to make sure that we're not having any technical difficulties.
Okay.
There's
Senator,
a big echo. Yeah.
There's a big.
And others should make sure they're muted if everyone else can.
Yeah, maybe we'll kindly ask senators who are not. We'll ask senators who are not speaking to mute. Reverend, do you mind giving us a little test run, saying a few words?
Sure. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you hear me?
Perfect. There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's begin this again. It is my pleasure to welcome for this morning's devotional exercise, Reverend Arnold Thomas of the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church of Jericho. Reverend, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thanks again for having me. There is an old saying that misery loves company, and I often believe such is the company of politics and religion. For these are the topics we are encouraged to avoid in civil discourse. Still, we are taught not to talk about them because they seem and they mean so much to us. One could say that our nation and political structure were founded on religious principles, and as our nation encompassed a greater diversity of people and perspectives, our religious principles have struggled to evolve, accommodate, and keep up. Over 2 decades ago, when I served as denominational leader for the United Church of Christ in Vermont, I was invited with other religious leaders to the Vermont State House to address the political matter of civil unions, which I suggested should be treated as equal to marriage. At this meeting, it was apparent that the religious divides on this matter reflected and, in many cases, undergirded the political divides. For every faith tradition comprises a vision of what the world should be, a so-called promised land. And political structures provide the means by which, to paraphrase the Lord's Prayer, God's realm may come and will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In other words, whether we like it or not, piety is political. However, there is a power far more important than faith and piety, far more important than faith and politics, and that is God's impartial, all-encompassing, and unconditional love. It is, in my estimation, the foundation upon which everything else is built and holds merit. If our faith and politics are fixed and confined to a specific doctrine, denomination, nationality, race, religion, or outlook on life that leaves no room for mystery and the unknown, nor allows us to be surprised by the epiphany of God's presence in people and places we least expect, if our faith and politics inhibit us from exploring new possibilities and sailing uncharted waters, then our faith and politics, our faith and political perspective, our faith and political outlook become boastful, arrogant, rude, even violent and destructive, the extreme polar opposite to what God is. This all-embracing love is the foundation on which the universe is created, I believe, and by which we are bound together in a cosmic web of mutual dependency. So that if one member suffers, we all suffer, and if one member is honored, we all rejoice. Only when we realize this power and dimension of love shall we finally know that the Word and the Spirit of God is upon us. and only then will we be able to see our promised land. Thanks again for having me join you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. It's wonderful. Are there any announcements this morning? It's my pleasure to welcome our legislative pages and also their families. We will stand in a brief recess to honor them today. The Senate will stand in recess. And I will welcome up the senator from Windham, Senator Ballin, to provide certificates of appreciation to our pages. But just to recognize that this is the first time this biennium that we've had pages in the building, that it's been extremely special. Thank you for bringing some normalcy back to the State House and being part of all the work that's happened here today, from waters to notes to being part of the legislative process. We thank you, and we're deeply, deeply happy to have you here. And for that, we're going to provide you a certificate of recognition and appreciation. So Senator Ballin, please come up. We'll do them in order by name, and when your name is called, please come up. Camden Buckley. Want to stand between us? I'll get a nice here. There you go.
There we go. That work? Okay,
Congratulations. You can come up
We're
this
gonna
way.
We're gonna get the
There you
flow
go.
this
Great
way.
job.
And yeah, parents can come up onto the floor. It's not usual, but this is not a usual thing when we acknowledge the pages.
And we do have a photographer here. Mia Dolan, please come up and be recognized. I'm gonna hold it with both hands and stand between us. There we go.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, no problem.
Abraham Dunn, a name we recognize in the chamber. Go. Congratulations. Amelia Farley, come on up. There we go, Amelia. It's lots of smiles, right?
Yep.
Grady Hagen Book. Boo. There we go. Congratulations. Cecilia Marino, come on up. Thank you.
I think you want to get one more.
Oop.
Thank you so much.
Great. Congratulations.
And Emma Schaefer. You might want to use two hands. There you go. You make sure. Okay. Good. Please join me in a round of applause for our incredible legislative pages. Parents want to grab one last photo, we can do it here, and then we will return to the business of the session and send you all back to work.
Get in. Let's see. Okay, to go this way.
Yeah, you can't go in the back. You have to be.
Do you want to hold your certificates? There we go. Right side. Perfect. There you go.
I don't know where to look. Yeah, just,
Stick a spot in the middle.
Smile really big
yes,
with these glasses.
so we can see it in your eyes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got it?
Okay, congratulations. Don't be strangers, okay? Thank you. Okay,
Are we still in
we'll go back in.
the section?
The Senate will please come to order. We will resume. Are there any announcements? The senator from Wyndham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I just really want to thank all the doorkeepers and the crew at the Sergeant of Arms office and Janet Miller for all the work they've done to make sure there was a PAGE program. Yes. So thank you, Madam President.
Yes. They've been wonderful.
Thank you. Are there any additional announcements this morning? We have a joint resolution to take up. JRH 15, joint resolution extending the application of temporary joint rule 22A through Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. Please listen to the reading of the resolution by title only.
JRH 15, joint resolution extending the application of temporary joint rule 22A through Tuesday, March 8th, 2022.
Now you've heard the reading of the resolution, and the resolution will be placed in the calendar for action on Tuesday. We have 3 House bills for reference. H477, H477, an act relating to leave for crime victims, introduced in the House on January 7th by Representatives Grad of Moortown and Stevens of Waterbury. Please listen to the first reading of H477.
H477, an act relating to leave for crime victims.
You've heard the first reading of the bill, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Economic Development. H510, an act relating to a Vermont child tax credit and the Vermont Social Security income exclusion, introduced on January 7th by Representative Ansel and others. Please listen to the first reading of H510.
H510, an act relating to Vermont child tax credit and the Vermont Social Security income exclusion.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Finance. And finally, H559, an act relating to workers' compensation, introduced on January 11th by Representative Kimball of Woodstock and Marcotte of Coventry. Please listen to the first reading of H559.
H559, an act relating to workers' compensation.
You've heard the first reading, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs. This brings us to the orders of the day. We have on the calendar for action H361, an act relating to approval of amendments to the charter of the town of Brattleboro, which was read for the first time on May 4th. It was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the bill ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of H361.
H361, an act relating to approval of amendments to the charter of the town of Brattleboro.
The senator from Wyndham, the chair of the Committee on Government Operations, is recognized for the report.
Thank you, Madam President. May I read a quote from George Washington?
You may.
Thank you. A primary object should be the education of our youth in the science of government. In a republic, what species of knowledge can be equally important, and what duty more pressing than communicating it to those who are to be the future guardians of the liberties of the country? Thank you. The process leading up to the Brattleboro charter change and the change itself reflects a great example of the education of our youth in the science of government. As with many high schools, Brattleboro Union High School has a long history of studying government. Almost 15 years ago, it was a group from BUHS that introduced legislation that would require the state, when making purchases, to ask its suppliers to certify that the product was not produced with child labor. This was not just a feel-good piece of legislation. It actually resulted in BGS not making a purchase when the supplier could not or would not meet this requirement. About 10 years ago, a group of high school students became very involved in understanding the workings of Brattleboro town government. They researched, worked with officials, and ultimately asked the charter committee to change the charter to allow 16-year-olds to vote in local municipal elections. Once that happened, there was more community input. Charter changes in general require much time and much public input. After all this input, and with a public vote, the charter was changed on March 5th, 2019. The vote to support that change was 908 in favor and 408 opposed. The result is the charter change before you, H361, which starts on page, I believe it's 440 of today's calendar, but I may have been looking at yesterday's, but it is there. Section 2 identifies a youth voter as someone between the ages of 16 and 18 who is a citizen of the U.S., resident of Vermont, and has taken the voter's oath. The term youth voters is then inserted in the sections of the charter wherever voter is mentioned. Section 2.3 allows youth voters to vote for representative town meeting members. 2.3a allows a youth voter to vote early if he or she will be 16 on election day. 2.4 makes it clear that youth voters can also run for and be elected to representative town meeting. 2.5 makes it clear that youth voters can run for and be elected to the select board. 4.1 addresses youth voters voting for the select board. And 10.1 is simply a technical change to comply with draft and construction and inserts youth voter. This charter change only applies to municipal elections. It does not affect any schools as there is a separate school district. Participation in elections and government activities is the foundation of our democracy. The first time someone votes tends to set a lifetime pattern. Setting that pattern when a person is typically living at home and hopefully life is less chaotic than it might be in their early 20s makes sense. A concern that has been raised is that the seeming contradiction of raising the age of juveniles in the criminal justice system while at the same time lowering the age to vote. This can be explained by way of brain development. Without getting too technical, I will just say that the different parts of the brain develop at different rates. The part that controls thought out, deliberative decision-making, often called cool cognition decision-making, develops much earlier. It develops early in life. And thoughtful decision-making is indeed the core of government activities, we hope. The prefrontal cortex that helps us understand the consequences of our actions and helps us control our emotions is the last to mature. That is why we often see teens excelling in some areas while at the same time engaging in very risky behavior. We heard from Representative Peter Anthony, the reporter of the bill on the floor of the House, and the three representatives from Brattleboro, Molly Burke, Emily Kornheiser, and Tristan Tolino. The vote of the committee was 4-1-0, and we ask for your concurrence. Thank you.
Thank you. The question is, shall the bill be read the third time? Are you ready for the question?
Roll call.
I believe that was the senator from Rutland. Yes? The senator from Rutland has requested a roll call vote. The senator from Addison is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the Government Operations Committee for their work on this charter change. I just want to congratulate the city of Brattleboro for taking up this measure and for listening to the students at the Brattleboro High School who proposed this a number of years ago. as you all know, I remind you often, I am the mother of teenagers. I'm a mom of a 16 and a 17-year-old. And I can tell you that they are ready to vote and they are ready to participate in government. And their analysis and engagement at this age is absolutely incredible. My colleagues on the Finance Committee will be interested to know that I had a very in-depth conversation with my son last night about tax policy and the bills that we're looking at in that committee. And I think that with all of our concern about making sure that our youth are involved in government and they are civically engaged citizens in our country, that this is a really important step to take. And I really hope that Brattleboro's example could be spread to other towns and cities in Vermont so that 16, 17, and 18-year-olds will be able to vote in local elections. And as the chair of government operations said, be able to become citizens who are used to voting and get an early introduction to civic engagement and a say in their local governments. So I encourage everyone to vote for this, and I thank the city and the committee for their work. Thank you, Madam President.
Are you ready for the question? The senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. As a resident and voter of Brattleboro, as a former social studies teacher, and as someone who got my start in politics by being an elected member to our Brattleboro representative town meeting, I strongly support this charter change. We have been talking about this issue for a long time in my hometown, and the vote was overwhelming in representative town meeting. And I always say that Vermont seems to be held together by duct tape, twine, and civic engagement. And we should be doing all that we can to get residents engaged early in their lives in the work of their town. So I hope you'll support this charter change. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? The senator from Rutland has requested a roll call vote. The secretary is kindly asked to call the roll.
Madam President, the senator from Caledonia.
Oh, sorry, Senator. The senator from Caledonia is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. May I interrogate the presenter of the bill?
You may.
Madam President, did I understand that folks this age would be entitled to run for select board?
Any voter, according to the Constitution and the Charter, any voter is also eligible to run for the office, for an office, yes. And we often have, as we know, we have, for example, youth representatives on the State Board of Education. We have youth representatives on different boards and committees. And so, yes, they would be eligible to run for representative town meeting or select board.
I thank the senator. Madam President, I'm somewhat concerned, and I guess I'll expose myself as whatever conservative role I'm supposed to have here. I always wanted to have youth educated, and I was part of a group of youth at one time that got a bill through the legislature, thanks to then Representatives Cola Hudson and Madeline Kunin, to put a student on the Vermont State College Board of Trustees. This particular effort, however, has me concerned. Our Judiciary Committee has bent over backwards trying to disentangle youth who are 19 and below from an adult criminal system, because we understand that their brains have not fully developed, and it's not fair for us to lump them into categories with people who have not only developed brains, but have become adults and have made decisions that we do not want anyone to make. I'm concerned here because as I listened to the senator from Addison about her own children, I thought about my children who are now admittedly grown. But the idea of when they were 16 and 17 years old, being able to make a vote that would impact directly my own property taxes, I find that very concerning. And I think this is setting us up for a precedent that we should think seriously about. So accordingly, as the roll call is taken, you will hear my voice say no to the request. That's not meant to insult anyone or to discourage youth from learning about our government process or becoming involved. It's just that I have a concern about people that age being able to literally dictate what their own parents are going to have for a financial impact. Thank you, Madam President.
The senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Currently, an 18-year-old can also dictate to their parent what their parent will be doing, because 18-year-olds are allowed to vote and run for office. This merely says that a 16 and 17-year-old should be given the same right. And I also sit on judiciary, where we have worked very hard to try to, as the senator said, disentangle youth who make stupid mistakes from the criminal justice system. However, I don't want to go into a lot of detail, and I'm sure members of the Health and Welfare Committee are well aware of the area of brain development and how that works. And so what is called cool cognition, as I tried to explain, is the area of the brain that affects thoughtful, deliberative actions and well thought out responses. That develops early. The prefrontal cortex, which is what regulates our emotions, our risk behavior, is the very last thing to develop. So someone on a select board will be making those decisions using the cool cognitive aspect of their brain. They may go out afterwards and make a really stupid, risky behavior decision, but that's a different part of their brain, and that doesn't affect their ability to make those decisions in a manner that is cool and thoughtful. Thank you.
The senator from Chittenden, Senator Pearson, is recognized, and I see that there's other senators who have their hand up, and we will get to you.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm enjoying this debate. I love the specter of the youth of Brattleboro assembling and carrying out some unbelievable overthrow of their local government through the ballot process. This would be a wonderful crisis for us to have, for youth to understand their power in our democracy. And I would assert that there are not that many youth in Brattleboro, ages 16 and 17, so as to steamroll the more seasoned voters of the community. But should they be able to assemble and organize themselves to that end, well then, I think their more senior community members would have all the tools necessary to come back a year later and perhaps overturn this youthful mischief. And I reflect on the outcome of voting and the democratic structure around this country, in states and in towns and in cities, doing all sorts of things that I find horrible and some that I find commendable. At its core, what we're saying and what we have forever said in this country is that these decisions, that the power of our democratic process and our community rests with us, citizens that live here. And we've organized a somewhat orderly way of carrying out that expression. And so I don't think there's a high risk. I actually think that it's important I would love to see it be a higher percentage than adults who are participating in those local elections, sometimes ringing in at 10, 13, 11% of eligible voters. Maybe the young people of Brattleboro can inspire such fear in their more senior neighbors that they will turn out to the tune of 30, 40, gasp, even 70%. I think this is exciting. And I look forward to supporting this and encouraging young voters across the state and elsewhere to recognize their ownership over our elections and the whole structure that we've created. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The senator from Caledonia is recognized.
I can appreciate the enthusiasm of some folks about this prospect, but I'm reminded of an old saying from the Revolution: no taxation without representation. And this proposal literally flips on its head that statement. These folks are below the age of 18. That line of demarcation is very important. Anyone 18 and older is bound by contract. They can enter marriage. They can make all kinds of decisions that every adult does. With this proposal, we are eliminating any line of demarcation down to the age literally of 15 at this point. And then what makes it a difference between 13 and 15? There is no justification for having any kind of line of demarcation at all. And I just want to stress that when my kids were teenagers, the idea that they would have any kind of control as a select board member over my ability to pay taxes is a terrible precedent. As enthusiastic as they may be, as exciting as this proposal may sound, it is deeply concerning when we disconnect any requirement that they are taxpayers in a town and yet have control over taxpayers in the town. To me, is just concerning. I appreciate the conversation, and I join with my colleague from Chittenden that this is an exciting conversation. I hope we don't live to regret it. Thank you, Madam President.
Are you ready for the question? The senator from Windsor is recognized. Senator, please unmute.
I'm sorry. Since 1777, Vermont has had, well, in 1777 was universal male suffrage, but has not had a property requirement for voting since 1777. There were other inappropriate requirements, but not property. The hired man got to vote along with the farmer who employed him. Robert Frost's epitaph is, "I had a lover's quarrel with the world." And I think every politician has a lover's quarrel sometimes with our own constituents. I feel such respect, admiration, affection for my constituents. But every now and then, someone behaves rather peevishly, lectures me on the Constitution when they clearly don't understand the Constitution. I find occasionally a constituent to be infuriating, but I would never begrudge that person his or her vote, because we get to vote not because we're wise. We get to vote because it's our country, it's our state, it's our town. And so we participate in its governance. Probably some jejune adolescent will from time to time cast a vote that doesn't show a lot of wisdom or judgment. Well, that adolescent can join the many adults who cast unwise votes. Our belief is that enough people are wise enough, often enough, to have the unwise not do a great deal of harm, and that overall the good will prevail often enough, good enough. So I think this is going to be a good arrangement in Brattleboro, maybe to be imitated by other communities. Thank you, Madam President.
The senator from Rutland is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I too have enjoyed the conversation today in regards to this important topic. I echo many of the comments from the junior senator from Caledonia and his thought process. I rise to speak today on the subject as someone with experience. I believe that I'm one of the youngest members of this body, coming up on 35 years on this green earth. I was at 18, I served as the student representative to the school board in Rutland City. And at 20, I ran for select board in the town of Rutland and won at the turn of my 21st birthday. So I was very active at an early age, and I appreciate the youthful movement and those who want to get involved. As myself and the senator from Windsor and others have wanted to push forward a bill on civics over the last couple of years as well, because we need more political involvement and engagement in the teenage years so people understand how a democracy works. That being said, there's some flaws in the thinking, and I say that with all due respect, but there are many things that you cannot simply do it at 16 years old yet. Our nation has determined that adult age is around that 18 years. And I think to myself, not that I would ever encourage a person to be able to buy a pack of cigarettes or an alcoholic beverage. I certainly don't support that for 16 or 17-year-olds, but people in elected positions at 16 and 17 cannot fully take advantage of being an adult yet by our standards in society. Previous legislative bodies recently saw it fit that we didn't believe in Vermont you should be able to buy a firearm at 18, so the age was raised to 21. So I think there's some double standards when we look at what we will accept for 16 and 17-year-olds and what we don't accept for 16 and 17-year-olds. Once again, I'm not here supporting selling 16-year-olds firearms, but what I'm saying is if someone at 16 or 17 could be elected to a select board and make critical decisions for their municipality that affect everyone, then is their brain not mature enough to do other aspects of adult life, like making that decision? So I appreciate the time, Madam President.
Senator from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I see another sort of lesson in democracy that in this discussion, talking about a group of young people who organized themselves, educated themselves, brought forward a proposal to the city of Brattleboro, called for a vote from amongst the people of Brattleboro. People of Brattleboro overwhelmingly supported this measure to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. And I think it would be a terrible lesson in democracy for us to negate what the Democratic majority of the people of Brattleboro did at the bequest of the young people of Brattleboro. I think it would be sending the wrong message to say, you worked hard in your democracy, you were successful in getting your community to vote the right way, and we're deciding that you're not allowed to do that. I think that's a lesson that we would not want to inflict on the kids of Brattleboro.
Are you ready for the question? The senator from Chittenden is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to join with my colleagues from Chittenden County and from Senate Government Operations in articulating what a good problem this would be to have more young people engaged in democracy and participating in town meeting. Town meeting is something we uphold in Vermont as one of our greatest treasures, as something that we hope to export as part of our most engaged and direct democracy to other parts of the world. It's something we celebrate often. And here we have young people who want to have deeper participation in our town meeting process, something that, also helps keep them here because they feel like a part of their community. Some of the same people lamenting that this is a problem to have young people engaged are also the ones worried when young people leave and feel no compunction to stay in Vermont and make a difference. Having early experiences, engaging in your community, arguing about the new fire truck, whatever the case may be, helps make you feel like a part of Vermont permanently. And so, I just think this is such an important step forward, something I hope we see in other parts of the state. I personally take issue with the comments from the member from Caledonia that people who don't pay property taxes shouldn't participate in town meeting or other forms of direct democracy. I started in this chamber as a 22-year-old renter, and my community had faith in me that I could execute on behalf of them faithfully and dutifully my responsibilities as a member of the House. And now here I am as the first woman of color serving in the state Senate. So when we engage young people, when we give them a seat at the table, they do not disappoint us. They participate in our democracy. They are thoughtful about how they engage, and they make our communities stronger and better. I hope we will support this charter change on behalf of the people of Brattleboro.
The question is, shall the bill be read the third time? Are you ready for the question? Kindly unmute. And again, the senator from Rutland has requested a roll call vote. The secretary is kindly asked to call the roll.
Senator Ballant.
Yes.
Senator Baruch. Senator Benning.
No.
Senator Bray.
Yes.
Senator Brock.
No.
Senator Campion.
Yes.
Senator Chittenden.
Yes.
Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
Senator Collimore.
No.
Senator Cummings.
Yes.
Senator Hardy.
Yes.
Senator Hooker.
Yes.
Senator Ingalls.
No.
Senator Kitchell.
Yes.
Senator Lyons.
Yes.
Senator MacDonald.
No.
Senator Mazza.
Yes.
Senator McCormack.
Yes.
Senator Nitka.
No.
Senator Parent.
No.
Senator Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Perschlick. Yes. Senator Polina.
Yes.
Senator Ron Hinsdale.
Yes.
Senator Sears.
Yes.
Senator Sorotkin.
Yes.
Senator Starr.
Yes.
Senator Terenzini.
No.
Senator Westman.
No.
Senator White.
Yes.
Senator Baruch.
Please listen to the results of your vote. The yeas 20, the nays 9, and you've ordered third reading of H 361. We also have on the calendar for action today, S 122, an act relating to the required votes of presidential electors. It was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as appears on page 449 of today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of S 122.
S 122, an act relating to the required votes of presidential electors.
The senator from Chittenden, Senator Ron Hinsdale, is recognized for the report of the Committee on Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. S 122 tackles the issue of faithless electors in the Electoral College. Understanding the national popular vote principle we have supported in Vermont helps to explain the intent of this relatively succinct bill. We generally consider faithless electors to be those who do not fulfill the will of the state electorate, but the Vermont legislature has sought on multiple occasions to join the national effort to support the presidential and vice presidential candidates who receive the most votes nationally, regardless of the state in which the votes were cast. With majority votes in both bodies, we have upheld that the national popular vote system more closely aligns with the democratic principle of one person, one vote, and furthers a 50-state approach to winning over the American people. This legislation therefore requires the faith of electorates in the ticket that has won the most votes nationally in the presidential election when 17 VSA Chapter 58 governs our participation as agreed upon by the majority of states. In other words, when the national popular vote supersedes the current electoral college system framework, the electors of the political party that garnered the most votes nationally would advance to the meeting of electors where the presidential ballots are cast on behalf of Vermont. S-122 amends 2 sections of Title 17, Chapter 57, which relates to presidential elections. The changes to Section 2731 are housekeeping in nature. The changes to 2732 are substantive to the statutory duties of electors and the Secretary of State. In Section 2731, as background, our 2011 Acts and Resolves number 10 enacted the agreement among the states to elect the president by national popular vote, codified in Title 17, Chapter 58. The national popular vote requirements in Chapter 58 will only become effective if a certain number of states also enact the agreement into law. The changes to 17 VSA 2731 in this bill are necessary to update the Election Canvassing Committee's statutory processes in recognition of the possibility that the state may one day be bound to the national popular vote requirements of Chapter 58. If the national popular vote requirements of Chapter 58 go into effect without these changes in Section 2731, there will be a conflict between the statutory provisions in Chapter 58 and the statutory processes for the canvassing committees outlined in Chapter 57. These changes are designed to align the statutory text between the 2 chapters and eliminate that potential future conflict. They will not affect current processes. Section 2732 amends the process for counting elector votes in a presidential election. The changes are subsequent to subsection C of this section, requiring the elector to cast their vote for their party's nominees for president and vice president, requiring an elector to present their ballot to the Secretary of State and that the Secretary can examine that ballot, requiring that the Secretary of State shall not count the vote of an elector that is not casting their vote for their party's nominees for president and vice president, and requiring the Secretary of State to declare a vacancy for any elector's office where the elector refuses to present a ballot to the Secretary, presents an unmarked ballot, or presents a ballot marked in violation of subdivision C1. Your Committee on Senate Government Operations received testimony from the Office of the Secretary of State, our Legislative Counsel, and the lead sponsor of the bill, who has long championed the national popular vote. Madam President, your Committee on Government Operations asked me to report the bill because I have had the privilege of serving as one of Vermont's 3 electors in our most recent presidential election. It was one of the greatest honors of my life and was made more meaningful knowing that I was casting my ballot for the ticket that received the most votes, not only from Vermonters, but from all Americans. Given that we are already overrepresented as a small state in our electoral count, it helped me feel like we were contributing to the most fundamental cornerstone of our democracy, that all people are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. This bill takes us one small step closer to fulfilling that vision for our nation. Madam President, your Government Operations Committee passed this bill on a vote of 4-1-0. While I have the floor, I would also like to speak to the committee amendment, if I may.
You may.
Based on testimony from the Secretary of State's office, the Senate Government Operations Committee is further recommending that the word cast be changed to count in Section 2732, subdivision C3A. The word count is a more accurate description of the Secretary of State's role in the process and is consistent with the terminology used in the next subdivision C3B. Lastly, the amendment changes the effective date of this bill from July 1st, 2021 to July 1st, 2022. The amendment was supported unanimously as a technical improvement to the bill, and we ask the body to support the amendment and the underlying bill. Thank you.
Thank you. The question is, shall the Senate amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Government Operations? Are you ready for the question? Kindly unmute. The senator from Caledonia is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I feel like it's my day to play conservative. I am wondering, Madam President, what problem brought this on? I turn back again to the founding of this nation. I can say one thing for sure if this measure passes. Presidential candidates will never come back to Vermont. Our states are not created equal. Individuals are supposed to be. But our states are very, very different in their population distribution. And anyone running on a statewide basis knows full well that time has to be spent in Chittenden County, and it is worth very little to spend time in Essex County. And that's not to insult the people of Essex County. It's just the fact that the votes are not there. And the Vermont votes in a national election do not consist of something that will bring presidential candidates to our doors. The scheme of setting up an electoral college was specifically designed to even out the playing field for the states. And we are, for some reason I cannot fathom, deciding to throw that out. I think the Electoral College has served Vermont very well, and I think it has served the nation very well. With very few exceptions, is there any justification for a national election to force this particular issue forward? And I worry very much for future elections should this measure pass, as Vermont gets left in the shadows in future elections. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator, did you wish to inquire of the reporter?
No, Madam President, but I'll just take the brief chance to remind the senator from Chittenden, who I had a wonderful dinner with, that I'm actually not a member, I'm a senator, and appreciate just the opportunity to make that observation.
The senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm a little bit confused by the senator from Caledonia's comments, because I chaired government operations when we actually passed the national popular vote. It was a bipartisan effort by Republicans and progressives and Democrats to pass national popular vote. We have already passed national popular vote. We are a member of the compact, and all this is a technical change saying right now the way the elector, can't even remember what, Keisha, they were, Senator Rahm Hinsdale, you are called, but the electors, the way it works now is if Vermont votes overwhelmingly for a Democratic candidate, then it is the Democratic electors that go to cast their votes. If in a national popular vote kicks in, all this is saying is that even if Vermont goes overwhelmingly for the Democratic candidate, but the national vote goes overwhelmingly for the Republican candidate, it is the Republican electors that will go to cast their vote. That's all this does. This does not address the national popular vote. We have already passed that and been a member of that compact for many years. This is just a technical correction that will say that the electors who are part of the party that the national voters go for are the people who will vote in the. So we are not talking about national popular vote here. We've already decided that. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The senator from Franklin is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I may disagree slightly with the senior senator from Windham regarding the national popular vote in this body being tripartisan. I remember at that time being here and speaking up very vigorously in opposition to the national popular vote. And I suspect that some of the opposition today to this measure comes from continued concern about the national popular vote and an unwillingness by some of us perhaps to facilitate something that we believe to be unwise. You know, the founders of this country devised an elegant solution to voting by creating balance, so that the votes of large states such as New York and Massachusetts are balanced ultimately when we became a member of the Union by the votes of the small states. And as a result, for example, the Electoral College, the way it's set up, Vermont gets approximately, of course, 3 votes out of the 270 needed to win, and that represents about 0.6% of the Electoral College. But we only have about 0.2% of the voters and the population. And that gives an advantage to small states like Vermont. And that goes to the remarks of the senator from Caledonia as to why people come here, because the votes are worthwhile coming to. As we diminish our votes with the national popular vote, that is not the case. The other issue, though, that perhaps is even more important is that in the national popular vote, we as Vermonters sometimes will be forced to vote for candidates that our population, our citizens, did not vote for. And indeed, in 19 of the 59 presidential elections thus far, going up to 2020, in 19 of those elections, we voted in Vermont for someone other than the person who won the national popular vote. So 32% of the time, our electors would have been cast for people that Vermonters didn't vote for. That's why, again, I am not willing to do anything to facilitate the operation of the national popular vote law. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President, and my apologies to the senator from Franklin. I did not mean to imply that everybody was on board with this, but I do remember that in fact, I believe the prime sponsor in the House that brought this forward was Representative Kurt Wright. And I worked very closely with him and a number of other Republicans in the House who were sponsors of this bill. So it was bipartisan. I did not mean to imply that everybody agreed with it. Thank you.
The senator from Windsor is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. It seems to me that the discussion has drifted away from the bill. I want to emphasize what was said by the chair of the GovOps committee, that this is a technical corrections bill. But since the issue of the Electoral College and the intention of the founders has come up, I do just want to point out that it may be the intention of the Electoral College to protect a small state like Vermont. But in 2000, Vermont voted for the winner of the popular vote, but the winner of the Electoral College was not the same candidate. In other words, the Electoral College overrode our vote. Similarly, in 2016, Vermont's vote was the same as the national vote, the popular vote. And yet the Electoral College was carried by a person for whom Vermonters had voted overwhelmingly against. So I don't think that we're actually getting much protection in that regard. Thank you, Madam President.
The question is, shall the Senate amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Government Operations? Are you ready for the question? Kindly unmute. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you've amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Government Operations. The question now is, shall the bill be read the third time? Are you ready for the question? Kindly unmute. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
No. No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you've ordered third reading of S 122. This does now complete our orders of the day. The senator from Wyndham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Pending announcements, I move that the Senate stand in adjournment until Tuesday, February 15th at 9:30.
The senator from Wyndham has moved that, subject to any announcements, the Senate do adjourn until Tuesday, February 15th at 9:30. Are there any announcements this afternoon? The senator from Caledonia, the junior senator, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. Institutions will meet at 1 o'clock.
And the junior senator from Bennington.
Thank you, Madam President. Education will meet at 1:30.
And the senior senator from Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Finance will meet at 1:30.
And the senior senator from Caledonia.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Appropriations will meet at 1, short lunch, but 1 o'clock, please. Thank you.
And the senior senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Madam President. Senate Government Operations will meet at 1. Senate Reapportionment Committee was scheduled to meet at 12. I would ask that we check in just for a short time to figure out our next steps. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? The senator from Wyndham is recognized.
Just briefly, want to wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day on Monday. Valent is Hungarian for Valentine. It's one of my favorite days of the year. I hope you all have a wonderful time with your family. Thank you.
Hear, hear. The senator from Wyndham has moved the Senate adjourn until Tuesday, February 15th at 9:30 a.m. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, February